I will be amending the agenda. Beforehand, though, I just want to talk to you guys, people online, people here. The water situation, it's not great. That's honest. And there's no words that I can say that's going to make this easier, better, not any harder on your wallet. These are words, but they're coming from my heart. And I care about you guys. I care about Wellington. Everybody up here cares about Wellington. I can guarantee you that all of these trustees beside me are doing everything we possibly can to find you solutions, to lower the cost of your water, and to make things work better for this town, for you guys, and better for your wallets. We want this place to thrive, right? Right now, we are between a rock and a hard spot. There's no doubt about that. Years and years led up to this. And we are here fixing that. We're not kicking the can down the road anymore. We're here to fix the problem. Right now, it is costing us. It is costing us. And it's going to hurt for a little while, but we're going to do everything we can. And we are pursuing avenues to lower your water as we currently speak. We're working on renegotiating our 1983 agreement with North Pooter. That has been active for a while. I cannot guarantee you when that will happen, but I can guarantee you we are fighting to get that done as soon as we possibly can. That would be the biggest relief that we could possibly provide. So be privy to that we are doing everything we can. Trustee Teets has been a huge proponent of a secondary source of water. Staff is on that. We have advisory council right now looking into secondary sources of water for this town. That not only may help us lower costs in the future, but also give us safety if our water source goes down. Right now, we have one provider. And so that's vital for us, for growth and the success of this town. We're going to have this staff presentation. What I'm going to amend for is a staff presentation on the water rates to give you guys the history and the background of where we came from, where we're at, and where we're going. It seems like there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread around online. And some of you may say, we're not here for you because we're not commenting on those. Some of us do not comment on social media just because I personally don't. I don't view it as a professional platform to have communications. There's an email address, a phone number. You can reach out to me and call me and talk to me. You can reach out to the town. We do have trustees here that will reach out to you on social media. I'm not saying they're being unprofessional when they do, but we have them. There's people that will reach out to you there. So if you're not feeling like you're being heard or we're taking care of you guys just because we're not responding on Facebook, we are here for you. These meetings, I'm glad to see this room full. I've been mayor now for 2.5 years. I've only seen this room full maybe 3 times. We have 2 to 3 meetings a month. Usually there's 1 to 2, 3 people here. And so I'm glad to see the engagement. I mean, I know you guys are worked up and you're upset and that's why you're here. But I'm glad you're here. Your voices matter. That's all I have to say on that. So I would like to amend the agenda to have a staff presentation, and I would like to make that item A5. And then that'll happen before public comment, and then before public comment, I'll brief you guys again after that presentation.
Understood, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any conflicts of interest this evening?
Mayor Chaussee, I have a conflict with item C1, so I'll be recusing myself.
Thank you, sir. All right, now we will have the staff presentation, and it'll be Mr. Ed Gowing, our engineer, and I believe Megan Smith, our director of, there we go. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees.
Good evening.
Megan Smith, Deputy Director of Public Works. I appreciate the opportunity to come in front of you tonight and give this presentation. I am going to share my screen here and also make sure that some folks. Yes.
Yeah, each one of you should have one of these. Yep.
So thank you again for letting us come and present this evening. Finance Director Nick David and I will be sort of tag teaming this presentation as it definitely touches on both utilities and our finances combined. We do have copies, as this was a last minute add to the packet agenda this evening. I did provide copies in front of each of you for the Board of Trustees and the Mayor. There was a short stack of copies that are also available on this table up front for those in attendance. I know that these monitors can be difficult to read sometimes. So we'll go ahead and go ahead.
I want to rotate that TV so maybe those in the back can see it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And then do we need to hold for any modification for seating? Is everybody able to seat who needs to be seated?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. So we'll go ahead and get started. This presentation has a fair bit of information in it. And we're going to try and move through it as quickly as we can. So we have a full agenda this evening, but we realize the importance and the significance of this item this evening. So I'm going to let Nick jump in and give you a quick overview.
Good evening. So first, I just wanted to go over real quick what an enterprise fund is. The town of Wellington does have 3 enterprise funds: water, wastewater, and drainage. These are essentially funds that operate like a business or a nonprofit. In the expenditures, meaning the cost to run the utility has to be paid for by the revenues. And that's per our state constitution codified in Article 10, Section 20. So the revenue sources for the town of Wellington's enterprise funds are rates that are paid by current customers, impact fees it's paid by developers, loans and grants, and then we are able to receive up to 10% of the revenue in funds from taxpayer transfers through the general fund. That is limited by the taxpayer bill of rights. So all the other 90% does have to be generated by the fund. The expenditures in a fund are typically you're going to be your operations and maintenance as well as capital improvements. So when the utilities are being built out or upgraded, that has to be paid for by the fund as well. Financial health of utilities is critical. So as we've seen over the last several years, we've had to make some big updates to our treatment plants, and we need to make sure that the funds are financially stable to support that. So fund balance policies, rigorous accounting practices, continuous monitoring, and regular periodic rate and impact fee updates.
So speaking of that financial health piece, and as Mr. David did speak to the ongoing treatment plant expansions that we've been progressing through and are nearly complete at the water treatment facility and hoping to be complete in the fall for the wastewater treatment facility. Another important piece of continuous review and monitoring and those periodic updates that are required for rates is to ensure that we're continuing to keep pace with our expenditure level. One of the places where the town did unfortunately fall behind in that keeping pace is in the ever increasing cost of our raw water source, which comes in the form of a contract negotiated agreement with North Pooter Irrigation Company. That raw water source provides the bulk of the raw water for the town and has seen a 640% increase in the last 10 years. For example, I put some numbers up here on this slide that shows that in 2013, the primary per unit cost we paid for that water was $520 an acre foot. However, in 2023, that cost was $3,800. So I definitely want to highlight there was an inability to keep pace with an ever-changing and increasing rate that we don't have a great deal of control over, and that is dictated by a set of variables that are also outside of our control, such as the share price for a share of water, market share price, as well as interest rates, which we all know skyrocketed in the last couple of years. For example, the 2022 invoice for that water source was over $2.6 million. And now the 2023 invoice reduced to only $1.5 million. And that's a direct correlation to the fact that we, meaning the town and all of our residents, used far less water in 2023 than we did in 2022. And I'll touch on this graph that's there on the slide there again, but that just illustrates that significant precipitation that we had in 2022 2023, than what we had in 2022, and then also by far than what we've seen this year in 2024. And that does have a strong correlation to how much water is utilized in the town. And then I wanted to highlight then within those funds, there's two most significant expenditures in the drinking water fund, which is that North Poudre invoice, as well as our SRF, our state revolving fund loan that we secured for the construction of the new facility. That loan amount is just under $1.5 million on an annual basis. As you can see, even in a lesser water demand year, like 2023, that cost for that North Poudre invoice exceeds the loan amount that we pay on an annual basis. And for reference, I threw in a couple of pieces of information regarding our total non-capital expenditures in the water fund. So you could kind of get a feel for the percentage that invoice is, right? So 2.6 million of 6.2 million, that's over 40% of the entire non-capital expenditures in the fund are for that one line item, as an example. Now, in the wastewater fund, for sure, we don't have the same kind of outside contract there. But our singular highest non-capital expense in the wastewater fund is our SRF loan payment. We have not completed draw on that loan as we've not completed construction of the project. We're continuing to draw on that. But you can see that total loan amount that we secured also through a state revolving fund loan, an excellent deal for the town, probably the lowest cost money we could get. That loan amount in 2024, so starting this year, is $2.3 million. And that loan amount has increased over 22, 23, and then up to 24 as we're drawing on that loan. And then there's interest accruing on those pieces. Again, I put up for the same reference, kind of the non-capital expenditures out of the wastewater fund, also in 22 and 23. So you can see how much those costs are going to be increasing. Those loan payments are increasing our total non-capital expenditures in that fund. So we're going to dive right into some history of our water rates, water and wastewater rates. This slide has a lot of numbers. I have boxed in red where we are today, as everyone here I'm sure is aware. But I did want to put those numbers in context all together in summary with where we have been before. So for our drinking water rates, you can see that information going back to 1992. Over on the right-hand side, that table reflects our wastewater basin usage rates going back to 2007, excuse me. You can see a transition in that table on the left for the drinking water rates. There's also a transition on the table on the right, but on the table on the left, you can see that transition where in 2022, and I'll get into this as we move forward, but we had a new rate structure that was put in place to take effect January of 2023. And that is why there's an additional section of tiers in that table up top. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please hold comments till the end.
So also, it's not just as Director David mentioned, it's not just usage rates are not our only revenue source. We do receive revenue from all development that comes in town, and that was also studied as part of the 2002 rate study that I'll dive into a bit. I did wanted to summarize for you to ensure that folks are aware that those costs to developers have been reviewed and are being updated and increasing at the same pace that construction costs increase, that the cost of that burden and that tie into the town system increases as well. So we do have there again highlighted in red where we are today. So these are the current pricing structure. I also included on the right a small table that kind of reviews over the last few years what our raw water dedication requirement has looked like and what that accompanying cash in lieu price is. So that cash in lieu of turning in raw water kind of reflects that per acre foot, dollar per acre foot that we would charge a developer in order to come to town and to ensure that we can purchase the water that we would need to serve that property if they're unable to bring wet water. Historically, just as a point of reference, most development is met by bringing wet water, typically in shares of North Poudre as of recent. Now, moving forward, so let's kind of dive into that 2022 rate study. So this was a board-directed effort. The board asked us to, for the first time in quite some time, really do a very comprehensive review of all of the utility rates and impact fees. The previous study had been a little hopscotch in that it wasn't reviewing both usage rates and impact fees at the same time. And again, those work together to ensure that we have all the funding that we need to provide the services 24/7, 365. So that primary purpose of the rate study was to ensure the financial sustainability of the water and wastewater funds and to ensure that the rates and fees do recover costs proportionally across customer classes, as well as proportionally across existing customers and new development. As part of this rate study effort, we did engage a resident roundtable who came together to help us identify and who really identified themselves the values and principles used to develop a rate structure. For example, are we looking for rates to
There's somebody in the crowd with audio. Oh, okay. Okay.
I'll give up mine. Is anybody else? You can click this one. Oh, well, you got me first. That's all right.
Be able to view it on Zoom if you just mute your device so there's no. Feedback. Yeah. It doesn't always allow you to mute it.
No, it didn't allow.
I think we're good.
So we did engage that resident roundtable to provide that rate setting process with engagement from the community to identify the values and principles on developing rates. That is the primary, that was the primary driver for how we did develop a base rate, like our current base rate, that includes a basic level of water usage. That was a direct outcome from that engaged resident roundtable. The study outcomes for that process in 2022, we came up with updated water and wastewater rate structures across all of our customer classes, so residential, commercial, irrigation, updated all the capital investment fees associated with water and wastewater. It did develop a 5-year financial plan for both utilities, and one of the final recommendations was on top of that rate structure change was then a subsequent 5% annual increase for 5 years for usage rates, and then a 4% annual increase for 5 years for our capital investment fees. I do want to note that with direction from the board in 2023, we did review those capital investment fees and actually increased that by 5% based on the ever increasing construction costs. It was pretty justifiable to have those rates increase even higher than what was previously recommended. So this rate study was performed using industry standard methodologies. We contracted with Raftellus Consulting Company. They're actually a Colorado-based company who leads globally and specifically in the West of the United States with rate setting. They actually wrote the American Water Works Association Principles of Water Rates, Fees, and Chart Changes M1 manual. They're the author of that manual. They were an excellent team to work with. That process went through initially going through a financial planning analysis to determine what revenues are required to meet all the expenditures, and specifically what revenues are required across customer classes to ensure that all customer classes are paying for their own uses on the system or their own demands, and that's not muddying those waters across commercial or residential. There was a cost of service analysis that was performed. That was probably the most in-depth portion of the rate analysis that goes through, looks at all of our entire system from treatment, billing, invoicing, distribution, water quality, water testing, all of those costs, and ensures that they're allocated across peak day demands, seasonal peak demands, and those uses across customer classes as well, to ensure that the costs associated with any particular customer class is representative within the rates that we would set in that way. And finally, we did develop a whole new rate structure to align with the pricing objectives, with that main pricing objective being maintaining revenue stability in both the water and the wastewater funds, doing our very best to minimize the whiplash customer impact that roundtable and this board and previous boards are very aware of, that impact of changing rate structures that our residents have gone through since 2020. So one of the efforts was really to ensure that we came up with a plan that had a predictable and planned structure for implementation. It also included that essential water use pricing. That was the term that was utilized for that 3,000 gallons that is included in that base price. So it was an effort to ensure that we could come up with the best way to provide that essential use water at the lowest cost possible for those first few thousand gallons. It was also key to ensure that we were proportionally recovering cost, again, across customer classes, and that we had appropriate cost recovery between new and existing customers, really ensuring that development is paying its own way into our system. So here is just a snapshot of kind of when that new rate structure took effect in January of 2023. Just as a reminder back to that summary table of a history of our water rates, the town of Wellington has had a tiered rate system in place for a very long time, since the early 90s for sure. That's pretty, that is impressive for a small community, that they understood that the more water that is used, the more stress it's causing on the system. And the reality is that irrigation usage that's used in the summer actually dictates the size of all of the infrastructure that we have to build and maintain. That is the peak season when water is being used. And so it really does bear the brunt of some of those higher tier costs, as without that super high demand in the summer months, we could build smaller infrastructure. It did reflect some updated tier volumes, levels, and pricing. So those volumes within each tier. And then those volumes were actually based on a residential bill analysis that was performed. So we looked at the average, the number of bills across a year, which is about, what was the number? 47,000. That's the number of, of monthly bills that we generate in a year, give or take. And those tiers were set up such that, 47% of those bills on an annual basis, so 47% of those monthly bills would always be contained within that base rate usage. So they would only ever see that base rate charge on those bills. The next 33% would see usage within that tier 2, so that 3,000 to 7,000 gallons of usage, 16% there in tier 3, and about 3% on an annual basis. So 3% of those 47,000 bills that we would send out in a year would ever exceed that 20,000 gallons of usage tier. And that kind of lands us where we are today in terms of, this is kind of a snapshot of what you would see, what our customers, which all of you are, see on your bill on a monthly basis. Whether you would see some version of this, it will look a little bit different on the paper bills for those customers who receive their bill in the U.S. mail than it would look on Express Bill Pay, which is our online billing service and payment service. The structure of what you would see on that bill will look a little bit different, but you should see essentially the same information. It's going to include the water base rate at $52.20. So this is the most current rate for 2024. Again, that rate includes those first 3,000 gallons of usage. You will see a sewer base rate. Historically, our sewer base rate was much higher than this dollar amount before we went through that rate study. And that's because that base rate actually included a base amount of usage. And in this rate study, we pulled that out. So the base rate only includes that business expense associated with serving water to any particular residents and any particular customer in our system, regardless of how much wastewater they produce. There's a base level cost that's associated with serving it. There is a storm drainage fee for the town of Wellington that's $5. And of course, the Box Elder Basin Regional Stormwater Authority, that's a pass-through charge that we collect and then pay on. And then our water usage rates and those tiers that you see listed there. And then it talks about, there's a little blurb at the bottom there that talks about how the sewer usage volumes are calculated for residential uses. It is different for commercial. But for residential uses, it's based on a winter quarter average of your water consumption. So January, February, and March being historically the lowest water usage months in the year for customers. And that winter quarter average is updated every year in April with a new volume, your new volume of usage reflected on the bill you would receive in May. So that's kind of summary of our billing structure right now. So I'm going to let Nick or Mr. David step in again.
Just wanted to go over what the utility billing cycle looks like, the timeline, just to give an idea of how the statements are generated each month. So it starts with a meter read, which is a manual process where we have public works employees that go out and read all the meters throughout the town. And that typically takes place between the 20th and 25th of the month. We are looking at tightening that window if we're able to. The only concern is if there's a weekend or a holiday in a specific month, making sure we get all utility customers within that same window. On the last day of the month is the end of the current month's billing cycle. So billing cycle is a calendar month. The meter reads do occur differently, but that's just so we can get all the statements printed with the current meter reads. One thing to know on those statements is that charges do accrue in 1,000-gallon increments, meaning if you use 3,999 gallons, you will only be charged 3 1,000-gallon units. So you'd be charged for 3 units. In that case, you would fall in that first tier, which is included in the base rate. But again, if you use 4,999, you would receive a statement for 4 units. You'd have 1 unit in tier 2. On the 20th of the next month, that is the last day to request payment arrangements or to apply for the hardship utility grant. So that is, we try to have that there so that we can have all of those processed and in place before the due date being the 25th of the month. So when you get your statement, you have until the 25th of the month to make your payment. And then a late fee is assessed on the 26th of the month. If the bill goes delinquent, what would happen is the 15th of the second month following the statement, you would receive a notice in the mail of service termination or shut off. And then on the 26th of that month, if the bill is unpaid, the service would be terminated. There's an additional fee if that were to happen to have the service turned back on, and the outstanding balance would need to be paid in full. You doing trends? All right, so just some trends we wanted to go through. Looking at 2024 at the top, you can see the breakdown of usage for each of the tiers. We also have our average use in thousands of gallons, the average utility bill that does include all the base rates and all the utilities. So it's going to have the stormwater and the wastewater. And then the percentage of bills that fall within the tier 2 category of 7,000 gallons or less. So just going back to the rate study that Deputy Director Smith, Deputy Director Smith referenced, we did anticipate that 47% would be in tier 1, 33% would be in tier 2, 16% would be in tier 3, the remaining in tier 4. And you can see across 2024, we have, for the most part, maintained that average. We do have a 2023 end of year average on your bottom right and a 2024 year-to-date average. So we are within that model as anticipated.
Let me just expand just a little bit, because this is a lot of data and a lot of numbers on one slide. So I just want to make sure it's clear and everybody understands what you're looking at. So what that actually is telling you is that the first column in each one of these sections, so let's look at the very top left where it says January 31st, 2024. That's telling us how many bills in that month went out in each one of those tiers, meaning how many bills had a customer whose final water usage for the month was within that tier. So if they used 2,000 or 3,000, it would be within that tier 1. If they used 4, 5, 6,000, it would be in tier 2. So this isn't necessarily telling you how much water was used. It was telling you how many bills reflected usage within that tier as their final volume for the month. And that's where that summary can come in. A couple of things, that average use down across the bottom there, that is saying how many thousands of gallons of water was average for the bill, for all bills in that month. Now, of note, we are aware that averages across the entire town, of which several neighborhoods in our town have non-potable irrigation available for their use. And I'll touch on that again. So we do understand that that's maybe skewed low compared to those folks who use potable irrigation at their residence. And again, those summaries tables in the bottom right really reflect and tie in very tightly with what was expected based on that utility billing analysis that was done, that residential billing analysis that was part of the rate study that was utilized to how those tiers were developed. Looking at how many bills in any given year would fall into those tiers and paying those tiered rates. So I did want to touch on, and I know I've touched on this a couple slides back, this graph should look familiar. I do want to touch on weather impacts that we have seen that has made comparing last year to this year quite difficult, both in the actual data and also in maybe our memory banks. So 2023 for most of Larimer County, and for sure all of the eastern portion of Larimer County, saw the wettest year on record, 128-year record kept by ARDEC, Agricultural Research Station, CSU station, that's at the southeast corner of town that collects that data. That's where this information came from. Wettest year on record, 128 years. That's going to have a really significant impact on, I don't want to get too detailed, but the evapotranspiration requirement of your turf grass or any of your plants that we have in both our parks and in our homes. 2024 has been significantly drier and warmer this summer, much more on target with what kind of average years are. In that graph there, the green line, and I apologize for those that are, we put this together pretty quickly, so I apologize for those who maybe can't differentiate between the colors. I apologize there, but the highest line there is green. That is reflects 2023 precipitation. The jagged line there in the center, that is blue, that is 2022 monthly precipitation, just to give us a little bit backwards. And then the orange line, or that one that falls more in the middle, that saw more precip in the start of the year and far less as we've moved into the summer months, that is 2024 year to date. I'm going to let Nick jump in here. You want me to, I got this. So we have received, of course, a great deal of customer outreach, beginning with when we sent June bills that were received the first week in July. We have had a number of work orders that have been submitted and performed. So a work order, if a customer calls the town or reaches out, emails our utilities email address, calls our front desk and receives or is able to speak with Flip, our utility billing specialist, generally we'll go through some history with them. Sometimes she is able to answer the questions that they have. If there is a concern by a customer that there's a leak at their home or commercial business for that matter, there is the ability to submit a work order, and we have had 89 work orders as of yesterday, end of day yesterday. So, less than 90 work orders that have been performed. Of those 90, we've had 3 confirmed, what we would kind of phrase as an infrastructure related failure. So a true infrastructure leak, a meter horn separated from a pipe inside a crawl space, a service line failure in the yard, that sort of thing. Most of our customer contact has come from residents that use potable water for residential irrigation. For reference, we've included this map here. I realize it's small, but this is mainly just to get a feel for the reason that it can feel like, or not feel like, the reason that it is true that pockets of town seem to be more impacted right now is because there are pockets of town that have non-potable HOA managed irrigation systems available to irrigate their residential property. Other pockets of town do not. For example, these neighborhoods shown in brown and in pink, they are all on potable water for irrigation. Neighborhoods shown in the green, they have non-potable water available for their irrigation outdoors. And that is through those non-potable systems are through existing agricultural wells that were located within the development. And that is why that is available in some places and not available in others. One thing we have developed as through this work order process and the additional time that we've spent in the field helping customers review their information is where available, meaning where we have smart meters in place, we have been able to pull some history from those meters, which has been really helpful in identifying usage patterns. For customers, unusual usage patterns such as maybe a 1 to 3 gallon per hour running toilet, or oh my goodness, I really am putting down 3,000 gallons per irrigation cycle 4 times a week. There's a variety of that that has been identified. It's been very helpful. Now, unfortunately, we do not have our full automated metering infrastructure in place. When we do, which we have about 1,000 residential homes that still need, that are still on our older mechanical meters. We also need a full networking system in place, which means radio towers and the infrastructure in place to receive all of that data. And then we also need the software in place, and that has been in our capital improvement budget. And we have been actively trying to receive a grant. We applied for a grant earlier this year. We were unsuccessful. There's another rotation of that funding in the fall that we were actively still grant writing for. When we're able to complete that, that will allow a much more independent usage of those meters and the data that can come from them to allow customers to really see their usage in real time. And allow things like continuous consumption alarms that can notify our utility billing specialist live, or some communities, I've received a text before, you seem to have a water running consistently for 24 hours. So that has been a great help. One thing we have also been able to confirm through all of these efforts out into the field is that our meters are functioning properly. We haven't identified anything that's not been explainable through fixing a flap on a toilet, through modifying an irrigation schedule, through identifying a true leak that took place and being able to then resolve that with the customer because we could identify how many thousands of gallons were utilized. I'm gonna let you jump on this one.
So what I wanted to do with this information, this is actual information, board members sitting here, as well as some of the town staff, just show the impact that this is also happening on, to all of us. Many of us, all of us, excuse me, up here on the board do live in town, and many of us that work for the town live here as well. So there has been an impact from these rates on every person as well. And I just didn't want it to come across that we don't care, because we do. And many of us, and we know you do, many of us care, and it has an impact on us as well. Some of the other usage that we've seen in these data logs that we've been able to help residents with was, 100 to 700 gallons per hour running 2 to 4 hours, 2 times a week. That was using 11,600 gallons. And that was on their June 30th statement. We had another resident with 200 to 600 gallons per hour for 2 hours, twice a day, 3 times a week. And that was 10,500 gallons on their June 30th statement. We had a resident with 500 to 600 gallons per hour for 3 hours daily, which was nearly 40,000 gallons on their July 31st statement. So by using these data logs and having this information and being out in the field, which when we get the phone calls from our residents and we're able to go out there and meet with them and look into this, we've been able to help them identify these and make changes to prevent issues going forward. You might recognize some of those pieces of information. So We did want to provide just previous information that's been provided to this board before. We know that there are extra eyes on the meeting tonight. A lot of this information has come from previous meeting packets. This packet will be available here in the coming days through the website and through our social media. So all of these links will be available with previous regular meetings and work sessions from the rate study so that our residents have access to all of this information as well. We do have some resources that have been posted on our website and shared through our social media, including the Slow the Flow irrigation audit from Resource Central, the hardship utility grant through the town that was created by this board of trustees. There are services available through other organizations in and around Larimer County. Again, all of this is already on the website, and this packet will be available for the community as well. And lastly, we did want to provide contact information for our utility billing department. Our utility billing department is one person. It is one person who sits at the front desk and answers the phones, responds to emails, does all of the statement generation. The best way to get in contact with them is through email. It also provides a way to ensure that we are able to track and respond appropriately. So we do recommend using the utilities@wellingtoncolorado.gov email address. You can also call the Municipal Services Building, which is the 970-568-3381. And we do have the hours posted there. So we are open early Monday through Thursday at 7:30. And that gives our expanded daily Monday through Thursday hours, as well as our hours on Friday of 8 to noon.
As I was standing there, I thought of two other points that I didn't get made. So back several slides, which I'm not going to do that, but when I was talking about the highest singular fund expenses and referring into the water fund to that North Poudre Irrigation Company contract, one thing I really wanted to highlight is this, and the mayor did reference this in his statement earlier. Town staff has been working diligently with North Poudre staff and the North Poudre board, who have also been incredible partners with the town in moving forward the negotiations for a new contract. Staff is meeting with staff. Their lawyers are meeting with our lawyers. This negotiation effort is progressing. I really wanted to highlight that they have been a good partner in ensuring that we can ensure the livelihood of the town into the future as we continue to look to diversify our source water supply. As the mayor mentioned earlier as well, we have kicked off a water source development planning effort that kicked off in June of this year. We've had our first meeting with an advisory group to provide input on that process as we look to identify alternatives, ensuring that in the future we have more than one source of water and ensuring that it is within a cost bracket that we can afford as a community, and has, just the right amount of risk based on the level of risk that you all are willing to take at that point. I also wanted to highlight, there were a few as we were talking about work orders. I did want to highlight the methodology that's utilized as we're out in the field collecting this data. So as I referenced, we have about 1,000 meters in the ground that are older mechanical meters that require somebody. You'll see one of our diligent crew out there that actually have to come and touch your meter with that. They have a wand with them. They'll come touch the top of your meter and it takes a read. It's actually a census brand wand that just generates from a radio frequency from the meter and reads it there. We have another 3,000 or so meters in the ground that are smart meters that have a radio. Those meters are able to be read right now since we don't have a network infrastructure in place. They're read through the software that's provided from Census and I think it's called an auto work software application that is a drive-by system. As we drive through the neighborhood, it pings and picks it up as the radio frequency on those meters are sending it out, and that software picks that application up. So when we have those data logs that are produced, it's not that data is coming out of an application and being dumped into a CSV file, which is generally then converted into an Excel spreadsheet. We're not just creating an Excel spreadsheet. Nobody's typing those numbers in. It is data that's generated in a comma delimited file that we can then put into Excel spreadsheet or other means to be able to review that. I've gone through the effort with some customers of, plotting that data so you can see trends. Trends are a lot easier to see in a visual than just in a big, long table of numbers. So I did want to highlight that, as I know there have been some questions revolving in that area. And with that, I believe we can stand for question from the board, if you have.
Are there any questions from the board? Trustee Teets?
I do have some questions. Thank you for your presentation. I know that I have hounded our board as well as the town of Wellington and its staff about answers related to our water, and it's nothing new. I've been doing it to Miss Megan for 2 years, so she is extremely patient with me and my questions. The presentation is amazing. My question is what recommendation would you have to residents? Because I am on Facebook and I assure you, I read every single one of the posts that come through. I guarantee it. I try to respond to as many as possible. And if you are sending me direct messages or emails, I try to also respond to those directly as well. What would you recommend to residents that have cut down their irrigation to almost nothing and are still seeing the uptick in their bill? So this means that they have just decided, you know what, my grass is going dead. And they see their bill still increase, even though they've shut off their irrigation. What recommendation would you have to them from that point when they see their bill climb?
I would recommend that likely, so the timing, unfortunately, that's one of the reasons that Director David went through the billing timeline process. So if those meter reads are completed and submitted between the 20th and the 25th, we're processing a bill. We get it in the mail in the first week. By the time you receive a bill that reflects the usage that you had from, let's say May to June, and you received that bill the first week in July, and you shut off your irrigation system the second week in July, there were still 3 weeks between that last meter read and the last billing cycle, and when maybe action was taken on the ground to shut off or to modify an irrigation schedule. And so oftentimes there's going to be a lag, and you would likely still see a pretty significant impact from that irrigation, those 3 weeks of maybe, a significant amount of irrigation, that would still come through then on the bill that you would have received the first week in August. My recommendation would be that, and if there's the ability to please, if you have questions or concerns or frustrations, frustrations, please send us an email at this utility contact email. If you feel it's not an emergency, we really would prefer an email, only because it allows us better internal tracking to ensure we've responded to everybody, and allows us to be accountable to the time frame in which we're responding to folks as well. If you feel like it's an emergency and there's an active leak in your system, please do call and we can submit a work order. For those meters that are mechanical, that we cannot pull a data log for, we can still do some troubleshooting on that end. I mean, if we come out and we can see that that meter is spinning, we'll stand there for several minutes. So it could be even a slow leak that we can still identify even with the mechanical meter. So my first and foremost suggestion would be to reach out to the town, as we're the folks that are going to be able to help you identify at least the most recent sets of usage, and be able to see if we can pull data from that to help you identify any usage patterns that might have been represented. I do need to note that a delay in that phone call, unfortunately, can limit the amount of data that we can retrieve. Those meters, especially like the first generation ones that we have out in the field, they are limited on the amount. They have only so much data space in their little PLC brain that's in the meter pit. And they can really only retrieve about 35 days of hourly data. So once we get beyond a certain window, we might not, if you've made a modification, we might have missed the window to be able to really see it, but, or to see the usage patterns prior to the modification, and maybe how that sprinkler modification might have impacted the usage pattern.
Got it. Yes. So next question, payment arrangements. I am seeing online that we as a town have not offered some residents, not all residents, payment arrangements. I see here we are offering payment arrangements. So all someone would have to do is reach out to the town.
Correct.
and set up a payment arrangement.
Correct. Again, reach out through email, work with our utility billing coordinator. Any escalated issues do come directly to me. So we are able to help with payment arrangements. Typically, those do need to be paid within a 3 to 6 month timeline. Just to ensure that revenues are met for the year to offset those expenses. But we do make payment arrangements, and I do encourage you to reach out by email.
Perfect. The software that was discussed, you kind of briefly touched on it. Will you explain more? You said that it's in our budget, the software for budgeting to be able to allow residents to see their usage in real time. Can you touch more on that for an explanation of what we're waiting for, what we're looking at as far as how viable that might be, say, within the next year?
So the AMI networking, so automated metering infrastructure, AMI networking project has been a line item in our budget for several years, as we have been putting money in those line items to replace our existing meters. In the 2024 budget, sorry, I've been talking about a lot of different years. In the 2024 budget, there was a line item included to try and complete that effort. What was put in so there was a note actually put with the budget as well that talked about if we did not receive the grant, we would not be pursuing that, as it is a very costly project and it was not elevated further. So we are continuing to apply for these grants. We will be applying again in the fall. There are other means as we go through, as we're just getting started with the 2025 budget process, to have that in discussion and direction from the board at any time in that budget process.
Thank you. I won't take up.
Of note, for those who might go reference the budget, the 2024 existing budget, the cost numbers that are in there do not reflect the additional costs of having the customer side interactive portal. So that is additional software costs that would be in addition to what is already there. So what we had originally had bid out was for the ability to have that interactive portal on our side that would send us notifications and alarms like to the billing department of one. And then we would reach out and contact, because we don't currently have that ability. We're not notified of a leak or don't see that until we read meters at the end of in the meter reading period. But there is ability to update that quote with that customer facing portal option as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Trustee Keenan.
Thank you. Megan and Nick, thank you so much for coming tonight. And I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight to express their concerns about this. This bothers me a lot. You didn't see my example up there, but I think our bill was $500. And that's a lot of money. I'm retired. I'm waiting for Social Security to start. I don't have any income coming in. I'm like living off of savings right now. And that's a hard pill to swallow for anybody. And I can't imagine what that would be for a working family with kids. It's horrendous. But I am encouraged. So I want to kind of make sure I heard a few things correctly here. Yes, we are operating off of the 1983 North Pooter contract, which most people may not be aware benefited the town greatly for probably 30 years. After that, it got a little bit more complicated. And you mentioned a couple of the variables in there. You mentioned the price of North Pooter share, which in the past 7 years has more than doubled. You also mentioned interest rates, which have gone up dramatically. And I'm very familiar with that contract. So all these variables and all these bits of information go into this formula that tells the town how much they have to pay North Pooter for the water. And the only variable, quite frankly, in that contract that we can control is how much water we consume. Everything else is so arbitrary. The cost of a North Pooter share has nothing to do with North Pooter's ability to deliver water to Wellington. Interest rates on farm loans, which pulled out of the air have nothing to do with North Pooter's ability to deliver water to Wellington. Now, this is a problem that we've known about for several years now. And I understand that the negotiations from the town level have been going on almost a year now, is that correct? Or or a little longer?
Closer to 2.
2 years. I know it takes time because you've got different boards, you've got different interests, you've got legal on both sides and so forth. And this has been a long time contract, and North Pooter's been part of this town since it originated back in the early 1900s. But I understand that the negotiations are going extremely well, that those negotiations, if successful, based on, the tentative points that both parties have kind of aligned on, could significantly reduce the cost of North Pooter water for the town and therefore to all the residents. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm also encouraged by the study to find new sources of water. Quite frankly, if something was to happen in North Pooter, we'd be dry. And we can't afford to do that, so we have to continue that. I like the idea that there's a payment plan in place. I brought this up to our town administrator and the mayor as recently as last week about, can't we figure out some kind of payment plan? Can't we amortize water bills over the entire year so we're not seeing these peak demands in the summer and drastic lows and so forth? I understand that with a little research, we did need to find out whether or not our software can even handle something like that. But I think it's something that we should still continue to pursue. I also know that the difference between an enterprise fund and a general fund, and the enterprise fund, according to the state constitution, we can't tax property owners and use the money to pay for the utilities. So taking money from the general fund to help offset people's bills is against the law. We can't do that. Even trying to phrase it as a form of a loan still has to have a payback period, if you can even do that as well. So I don't really have a question, but I do want to let everyone know that not just me, but everybody here feels your pain, feels our pain, because it's collectively, it's our pain as well as yours, because we all live here in town. I believe that we are doing everything that we can to get that contract renegotiated. We had just kicked off in just the past 6 weeks or so, the new water source study that we have. The company that we've contracted with has got a great reputation. It takes years to develop a water source, and it takes a lot of money to develop a water source. But I feel that once we do that, we will be in a better position, a more sustainable future for everybody here in town, for residents and for the town itself and for our infrastructure. I do read those comments on Facebook as well. I don't comment a lot, but I can't this week. But I tell you what, next week, I'm going to set up a couple of dates where I'm going to be available. If somebody wants to just come and talk, we'll make them in the mornings, we'll make them in the evenings. It won't be like a town hall, but I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your things, what your thoughts are. I want to hear what your suggestions are. I want to hear how it's hurting you personally. There's a gentleman that I met beginning of the summer, and shortly after we met, we sat down on his front porch and we talked about the water issues. And I hope I was able to explain a little bit about what got us here. But I think it's more encouraging that we understand that we're not just abandoning the future. We're actually actively working toward finding solutions. But like the mayor said, our hands are tied to some degree because we can't just start transferring funds, from the general fund to the water fund. I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to be able to say, okay, let's give everybody a forgiveness on their water bill or something like that. We just can't do that because then we'll bankrupt our water fund. These are tough decisions, and I want everyone to understand that the Board of Trustees, including myself and staff, are doing everything that they can to try to find solutions to make this work. The audits, we used one of the audit services that came to our house. They evaluate all of our sprinkler system. I know I've got a little leak on one of my systems, but you know, I dialed back my irrigation. And I guess compared to some people, my cost isn't as much as maybe some of yours, but it's still a burden. It's still a burden. I shouldn't be paying, no one should be paying that much money for the water. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Lowry? More? Sorry.
One day I'll get it right.
I know.
I've spent nearly every day for the last 9 years advocating for affordability. I hesitate to speak right now because I'm going to get emotional. I'm so sorry we're in this position. All of us are, honestly. Basic human needs should not be something that you have to fight for. And right now we're in that position. None of us want to be here. And I promise you, every single one of us are doing everything we can to find resources to make this better for all of us. I'm just sorry, and thank you for being here. I'm also available if you want to talk. I care about this town. I care about the residents. And we need to fix this. None of us are unaware of that. And we all want to make it better.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand?
We're all feeling pain, that's for sure. I was that lucky one up there that had a $655 bill that I just got in the mail yesterday. I started talking with some of the neighbors when I got my $473 one, saying, what in the world is going on? And talked to one of the neighbors, and he told me about a system that he's using. I mean, he's over in my same addition. He had $200 and some odd bill. How in the heck did you do that? And he told me about Cycle and Soak. It's a Rainberg program. And at the end, when I got that 655, I noticed that my controller for the Rainbird was running continuously for like 2 days at nighttime. And I think that's probably the reason it went up that extra 8,000 gallons. It might have even been more than that. I'm not sure, because I thought I had actually dialed my watering time back. But set up with this Cycle and Soak, what I am figuring, and this is something that we can solve an immediate problem while we're still having to pay high prices for the gallons, okay? What I'm figuring is, you know, before I did that, I was running 54 hours a month watering. By doing this Cycle and Soak, 38 hours. That's 16 hours. I don't have no idea how much that's going to end up saving me. I hope it's a minimum $120 to $150 a month off the $455. I mean, that's almost affordable. But there's got to be some way to get a little bit of an immediate relief here. And I would suggest, I mean, I know some of the people had already heard of that. I never had. I mean, it just boggled my mind when I heard about this system. I would run 16-minute cycles in my yard. I'd have a river flowing down the road. Now I do 12-minute, and it goes like 4 cycles and then repeats again. Very little water goes on the road. That's money I don't have to pay there. I'm not growing a road, so I don't want to have to do that. But think about that. I mean, that's an immediate thing that people can do. It cost me $150 for the new controller. You might be able to figure out how to do it on your current one. And it cost me, I did the Wi-Fi thing for another $100, so $250, and I figure that's gonna pay myself back within 2 months. And I mean, I'm getting ready to retire here too. I can't afford $500, $600 a month. So I'm feeling you guys' pain too. And like I say, just had to think about it, had to figure out, the best thing for me. And I definitely wanted to relay that to everybody too, because I mean, that could be a short-term solution to help some of the pain that we're dealing with. So good luck.
Thank you. Trustee Daly?
This has been a horrible situation that I've been forced to make decisions on for a very long time, and before that, learning about. You guys have learned tonight some of the content that has been presented to the board and or presented the board at least 20 times, unfortunately, because we revisit this so many times and so significantly, especially during the time that we were doing this study. So I promise there is no knee-jerk reaction happening right now or for this season. We have unfortunately been dealing with this and making these decisions for years, which is, it's been the most horrible thing to do. Because even if you understand, and we understand it very intimately at this point, and there's some amazing additional analysis tonight that that I appreciate. Thank you. I haven't seen that specific content, but we're very intimately involved in what's going on and know what the numbers look like, what the requirements are, and what the costs are to the town. And that information is so horrible to have because we know the actual situation that we're dealing with, which is, we can't put that lightly. This is a very, very severe and critical situation that we've faced up to this point. So us knowing that, and now you knowing a lot of it, I think it's helpful, but that doesn't pay your bills when you can't afford it. So I'm not going to say now that you know, you should feel better. That's wrong. That's not what's going to happen. You still may not be able to afford your bills. I appreciate that we're communicating everything we know that's led to the decisions that we've done thus far. I mean, that as a town is what we can do is provide the communication. It doesn't improve our situation, and then knowing that we are actively and have been for years pursuing additional opportunities to lessen the burden on utility rate payers. I was board member number 3 on the example. If anybody wants to see my bills, mine are significantly less than a lot of other people's, and I've made very some changes at my home to make that be. I've been very water conscious for some of my landscaping. If you want to talk about that, I'd be happy to do it. And the town also has a landscaping guide that provides a lot of information on species of plants and things that thrive with little or no water. But of course, if you're not able to pay your bill right now and you're in the audience saying, I can't afford to pay my bill, so for sure I'm going to take out all my landscaping and redo it, that's also not viable. So I am so sorry that we're in this situation, and I'm so sorry for our board to have to deal with it because it's horrible. So my heart goes out to everybody.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Smith, Mr. David, really appreciate you guys coming out tonight and giving us this presentation. Obviously, this is difficult for everybody. Certainly, I'll echo the same comments that everybody else has made here, which is that, I read all the Facebook comments as far as that goes, and I'm certainly very well aware of where folks are at. I do have just a couple real quick questions, and then I don't know if I'll get into my giant diatribe here, but we'll see. Along the lines of Trustee Tietz's comment, I don't know if our billing system will allow for this, but would it be possible to have residents that want to optionally pay more in the wintertime help assist with their summertime bills as kind of a wintertime subsidy type of thing, whatever you want to call it, I suppose?
I am actively looking into budget billing. Currently, I do not believe so, in that an overpayment does automatically get refunded. So if, like, at the end of a billing cycle, if there's an overpayment, there are checks that get mailed out.
Bless you.
So that is a high priority. I have heard it from Trustee Cannon, Trustee Teets, and we'll hopefully bring something back. I do know it was something that the town offered at one point. And I don't know the reason for the change, but I am working with our software provider on that.
Great, thank you, Nick. One other thing I just probably would ask from staff here, obviously, since we're halfway through the year now, we've got some numbers and we're going to be coming up on the budget season this year. So I think I would like to ask that we very much consider the pricing of tier 4 and whether maybe we can extend out the third tier, assuming that fits within the current model and that we're able to pay the NPIC water bill at the end of the day. That's obviously number one priority there. So that would be my ask from staff. Just for, full transparency, as far as I'm concerned, my bill this month was $180. I used 9,000 gallons on my property. My property's in the Meadows. I've got a comparable lot size to Trustee Wiegand. My grass is perfectly green with 9,000 gallons of water. I am not gonna lie to you. I use probably about 2,000 gallons or so in my home. So the rest of that is exclusively irrigation. But I can tell you for my lot size, if you're irrigating more than that, it's probably not necessary. So I'm only point that out because there's two schools of thought, it seems to me, on this particular thing. One is that, rates are simply too high, and the other one seems to be that meters were maybe misread or estimated. Ms. Smith, can you speak to meter estimates as far as that go and whether we've done any estimates in the last 2 months?
To the best of my understanding, no, we've not done any estimates in the last 2 months. I would also note that you receive a utility bill and your meter reading has been estimated, it will say it very clearly on your bill. If you receive a print bill, it's in green letters out next to the section where it talks about meter reading, lists the meter reads, it would say estimated right there. So if it doesn't clearly demark estimated on your bill, it has not been estimated. And to my knowledge, no, we have not done any estimated reads, and for sure. Pardon? No, it's occasional, but in several months for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I just want to be clear for everybody. So we do not estimate meters unless your meter is inaccessible, right? Okay. And that's addressed in section 13-1-100 of the town code. An example of when a meter might be inaccessible would be like if it's covered under 5 feet of snow, something like that, right? So we do not do meter estimates in the summertime. One other thing I'd point out, Ms. Smith also mentioned, we use industry standard census meters. Many municipalities across the nation use those. Those meters have an extremely low failure rate. So if you're getting a bill, I guess the bottom line is, if you're getting a bill that says, I'm on a lot size that's, personally, I'm on a non-pot system and I use 9,000 this month. If my bill happened to be 20, 25, 30,000 gallons this month, I almost certainly know that I have an issue on my property. It's very unlikely that my meter has an issue, very unlikely. And there's a number of things this could be related to. Just one example I might give you is, we've had a number of different Excel outages this year. Some of those irrigation controllers will reset themselves if it's not got a battery backup and your power goes out. They may factory reset themselves. So just maybe something to keep in mind. Check on your irrigation schedule as far as that goes. But I think what I want to convey here is that, a lot of what we've seen on Facebook is that these $600, $700, $800 water bills, the average Wellington resident uses 7,000 gallons per month per year on average, right? So if you are one of those users that's really high up there, 35, 40,000 gallons, and you are certain that you are not irrigating and there's no leak in your house, please call the town. Please come get a hold of us so that we can come out and take a look at your property, because the bottom line is, if you are convinced that you're not using that much water, it's going somewhere on your property. It is. So we need to know where that is, right? So we can handle your bill. See if there's anything else I want to address here. Let's see. There's a gentleman that's had a few comments that suggest that we double bill for things. We do not double bill. We charge per 1,000 gallons, as Megan stated. If you use 3,999 gallons, we bill you for 3,000 gallons. The next month, what that extra gallon that goes on top of that 999, that will be your next one on the next month. So we do not double bill. I just want to get that misconception out of the way. The other thing is, and just, overall, finally, do not get me wrong, this entire board wants to bring rates down overall. But bringing the amount of consumption that you're using on your property we got very low bearing on that, right? And we don't make rate structure changes in a vacuum, right? We know what the North Poudre water bill is that we have to pay every year. We've set these rates in conjunction with Raftalis, town staff, the resident roundtable, this board. And, certainly we're going to be looking at, changes coming up this year. I don't want to have to increase rates anymore. And depending on, what comes back with the new North Poudre irrigation contract, it's entirely possible we may have some good news, but we can't give you guys good news until all that comes to fruition. So I would ask that everybody gives us some patience till the end of the year on that. And I think that's all I've got.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you guys putting that together for us, for the community, everybody online. Thank you for that. Couple other things that I wanted to touch on that I don't think got covered. HOAs, they cannot fine you for having a yellow lawn. We have watering restrictions in this town. They have to abide by those. They cannot override that. They say they can, they're wrong. Other things, sprinklers. You'd be surprised how much water they actually use. Anywhere, let's say 6 to 16 gallons a minute comes out of a sprinkler head, depending on which sprinkler heads you have. So if we just take the middle of the road there, maybe a little on the low end, say 10 gallons per minute, and you have five sprinkler heads in one zone, okay? You times that automatically by 10, so that's 50. So every minute you're blowing 50 gallons of water on your lawn. Times that by a cycle if you're doing it for 15 minutes. And then you times that by, you probably have another zone. So let's do 10 heads. And for each month, just in that simple math, you're blowing $6,000 on your lawn, or 6,000 gallons, sorry. So it adds up quick. And a lot of us probably don't have the newer sprinkler heads. We're probably going to be up closer to that 13, 16 gallons per minute. If you have a pop-up head, almost guaranteed. And mostly those suckers leak unless you're checking them every year because those seals blow out on the bottom, right? And you're not going to see those leaks. That's just going into your lawn. You may see it going out on the sidewalk if you're lucky. So keep in mind that those sprinkler systems are going to be the biggest proponent of these usage rates. So keep that in mind. And if you have the sprinkler off, and just like Trustee Teets, mentioned earlier, how do you explain if they shut their water off? They still see an increase on their next bill. Wait until that next billing cycle, because it's about, let's just say it's about a month lag. Let's just say that. So by September's bill, they should show no usage if they shut off their water at their main and there's no leaks. Should show. So, we're here for you guys. We all live here. We're not trying to, I don't want to say a bad word, mess with any of you guys, mess with ourselves, mess with the town. We all want it to survive. We all want us to do the best we can. So please just keep that in mind. There's no changes we can make immediately because we do have to cover our cost of service. And that is the current contract that we have with North Poudre that we currently don't really have any control over other than trying to negotiate and get it down. So also please remember that the person at the front counter of the town is a human. If you're mad, I get it. You can be mad, but please be respectful. I know it really hurts her heart. And just keep that in mind.
I'm sorry, I had just one more thing that I wanted to say. I had forgot to mention earlier, if I had a resident reach out to me earlier this evening and let me know that if there is anybody local that is looking into transitioning to a zero-scape, if you're needing assistance and guidance, CSU Extension Services has free at no cost design implementation that you can actually work with someone to handle some xeriscaping features in your yards that will actually assist in cutting that water usage over time. The other thing is I had sent over, I want to say 4 different grants that are available that this resident also sent to me who has extensive experience in these kind of areas. But there is possibility, and it's not lost hope. There's a lot of things that can be done. I didn't realize we were giving direction in our recommendations or questions, but I would really truly like our board as a whole to hear what it would look like to have that quoted for the residential completely interactive part of the software, where someone can actually, where our residents, if they don't have a lag, then they don't sit and wonder. They're like, okay, if I shut my sprinkler off now, I'm going to find out in 3 or 4 weeks the impact. Well, 3 or 4 weeks, that's a lot of money used in water without the realization of what you're actually using in cost. So I think that that would be a huge assistance to look at, and it allows residents to take control of their own usage and know exactly what's going on. So that was it.
Fine, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, you had one more thing you said?
I did just have one other thing, and Trustee Cannon, I would certainly love to join you if you end up putting something together where you want to meet with residents as far as that goes. I'd love to join you on that. I'd also encourage folks, if you'd like to email me directly, masonb@wellingtoncolorado.com. I'm happy to chat with you as far as that goes.
.gov.
.gov. I apologize for that. I know there's multiple residents in this room that watch me beat myself up over this literally every single night. So I do want folks to understand that, we're very aware of what's going on and we want to get this handled. So do encourage you, like I said, if you've got high usage, please reach out to the municipal services building, myself, whoever that happens to be. You might even be able to convince me to come out to your property and take a look. I don't know how much advice I'll be, but.
Thank you. All right, that'll wrap up the presentation. Thank you guys very much. All right, so this next item is going to be public comment. Each individual wishing to speak will be given 3 minutes to speak. I would like to let you all know, if you have not been here before, it is public comment, not public question. Now, if you do want to pose questions, us at the board are not going to be answering them in this platform. I would request that when you sign in on the sheet, you write down your email, and we can reach out to you guys if those questions weren't answered in the presentation or so forth. Okay. I apologize. So those of you wishing to speak, and if you do have questions, we will do everything we can to answer them. It just will not be tonight. So once again, if you're going to speak, please put your email on that form there, and you'll be given 3 minutes. And time is now.
I'll be the first one. And there's no paper to put my email.
It's on the table behind you, and if you want to fill it out afterwards,
Okay.
by all means.
Okay. My name is Colleen McNaney. I won't give I live on Kit Fox.
If you speak into the microphone.
I live on
Thank
Kit
you.
Fox Drive, and that is in Viewpoint subdivision. I am a very high usage water person. All of our lots are large lots. I have nearly an acre. 15 years ago, I xeriscaped my front yard. That cut my water bill in half, not in half, about $100 a month, which was huge back then. I would have loved to have a $500 water bill. Actually, that's what I budgeted for this year, was $500. 845 was my first, 1,000 was my second. My second one, I cut back. I can't cut back anymore. My sprinklers are off. My lawn is dead. It's extremely frustrating because of all the hours, the time, and the money over the last 24 years that I have put in. I have lived here my entire life. I ran a business here for 24 years. I am now considering moving, which breaks my heart. because of the water bills. I'm embarrassed by my yard, and I would love for you to come look at it. My property value has dropped because of this. In my opinion, I don't have hard proof. But when you drive, not just in my neighborhood, but the entire town of Wellington, we as a whole look terrible, terrible. It's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing to me, who has always taken pride in my home and my yard and my town. I do understand you guys are working hard, and I appreciate that. And if we are able to come, we as a town are able to come to an agreement with North Pooter for the water, I would love to see it come down. I am never under tier 3. I'm never under tier 4. I'm always in tier 4. A couple years ago, I am using less than half than what I was a couple years ago, and my bill has more than doubled a couple years ago. So I appreciate your hard work in getting this. I do invite any of you guys to my house to come see my yard, and it's not just me. It's all my neighbors in the yard too. It looks terrible, terrible. So I appreciate you guys and your efforts in trying to get this resolved.
Would you state your name again, please?
Emily McNaney.
Thank you.
So my name is Ashley Daniels, and obviously this has been a problem for many years. We started renting out our previous residence, and we are still in Wellington, but my tenants are now like, we're getting $800 water bills. Like, this is insane. You know, and I'm like, I'm freaking out now because I'm like, I have a rental. Like, I can't cover a double mortgage if my tenants decide to leave. Like, how am I going to hold tenants if they're going to not be able to pay $800 water bills? So I have a client who he works for the city of Fort Collins Water. So I got him looking at all the statements and the spreadsheets of the hourly water usage. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, and he was like, well, unfortunately, your statement is accurate. He was like, you didn't see the drop when you guys turned the sprinklers off because of the 2-month lag in the billing cycle. So I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Hopefully August is a better month then. But it was just, he taught me how to count the zones and the sprinkler heads and how to calculate that. And so he was like, you know, every time each sprinkler head puts out 1.5 gallons per minute, 90 gallons an hour. So he was calculating, he's like, every time your tenants turn that sprinkler system on, it's pumping out 2,000 gallons of water. And so I'm like, wonderful. So they water the lawn 10 times in 1 month, and they're already in tier 4. And we will be making some adjustments to the schedule because I think that will help. But you know, it's very concerning for our home values. Like, you know, we might feel like maybe we should move out of this town. Who's gonna want to buy our house? I don't know. And after seeing some emails floating around last night about the history of this town and our finance directors quitting and why and all this stuff, it seems like there's some pretty shady stuff going on in this department. And that is extremely concerning. There's documentation of deposits going missing, all sorts of weird stuff. I don't know. I guess I'm out of time, but yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to touch on something there that was unrelated to the water. The news of an email being circulated by a former disgruntled employee, who was our finance director. That's all been proven wrong. The trustees hired a outside financial consulting firm to come in, last year. They went through, verified everything. There is nothing going on. The audit are a little behind because of the turnover of finance directors. So the 2022 and 2023 audits are currently being done. They're expected to be done by the end of this year, and then we'll be completely caught up. So there's the unfortunate things there. But I 100% will stand behind my town administrator, my finance director, and the work that the consulting firm did for us, that there is nothing shady going on. If you guys want to believe me, you can. If you don't have to, but those audits will be out at the end of the year and you guys can verify things for yourselves at that time. So that's one thing I wanted to address while the cat was out of the bag. And then I can't see the timer, so I'm just starting one on my phone. So you can talk until it beeps or I hit my gavel.
So my name is Kristen Ramirez and I also live in Viewpoint. So for the last 2 months, first month was an $800 bill and now I'm at $930. So I have not paid anything yet. So we're looking at almost $1,700 in water. I have completely, and we haven't really watered at all since summer started. I manually turn our valve on and off when I leave the house and when we're home using the water so that I know when we're home, there's nothing running. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of health issues as well in my family due to the condition of the water. And that's something that maybe also needs to be looked at, and I don't know to what extent. But we're dealing with major health issues. The doctors have confirmed that some of that stuff is due to the water, not necessarily drinking it, but just showering in it. So that has been a big issue in battling. Also too, the schools have been turned off with all of the water. I mean, again, another health issue that's very concerning to our kids. So at this point, I have gone to the town. They've given me a payment plan, but if I can't pay my current bill, how am I going to continue to keep paying $900 water bill when I've shut everything off? Also, I don't know why we're charging late fees and delinquent fees and all these fees on top of our current bills. If we're trying to do something and help our residents out, why are we charging delinquent fees? And to be honest, I mean, I don't know at this point, if you guys turn my water off, I guess that's what we're gonna have to deal with because I cannot afford to keep paying $900 a month for water. There's just no way. So, I mean, that's my mortgage payment at this point. So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if there is a great solution. I know we're all in this together, but something. I mean, I feel like we haven't received really anything, and I know we're still working, with the Pooter irrigation on this, but like everybody else said, we can't sell our house, we can't move, we can't do anything. We're tied right now at this point. I don't know what else to say other than I just think that there probably needs to be some kind of, I know not waiving a bill or anything like that, but hey, like I know 3 months maybe isn't going to be enough to help out, but whatever you can do at this point to help, us, and I'm going to do whatever I can and make payments towards it. And that's all I can do. So.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm also in the Viewpoint subdivision. Gina Arbuthnot. I live kitty corner from Colleen, so you can come and look at my yard too. Last year, for this month, we used 27,000 gallons. My husband is not watering the backyard at all. This month it says we used 27,000 gallons. we've already been checked and I did send an email. I do agree with things that are hopefully in the future, hopefully sooner. I think we need to have the immediate access as consumers to be able to see on a daily basis or hourly basis. I can monitor it because like so many people here, we're on fixed incomes. Been here since 1999. We have no backyard. We couldn't sell our house. Unfortunately, hearing what this lady said about the health with the water, my husband and I are already on the Camp Lejeune water, so we already have contaminated water. And now we've been here and I get sick because of that. But I have applied for the audit and our bill last month was $900 and some. This year again, and this month again, with my husband cutting out completely the backyard, which is gone, it's $500 and some, which is still a lot when you're on a fixed income. And the fact is, I have no backyard. So if I had a realtor come out to sell it, you know, it's not going to sell. And I just think that we need to, well, we probably should have already looked at getting alternate access earlier because this has been going on for a while. And I mean, like Colleen said, drive down Viewpoint, drive down any of those because unfortunately our developer sold our water rights to the town and now we have to keep repaying for those. So I'm just trying to, like with everyone else, just trying to figure out what we can do as consumers to be able to access. If we got smart meters, we should have the software. As consumers, we should be able to access that like we can with Excel or something else and check our hourly usage. We were sent the hourly Excel spreadsheet when I sent the email to the town. And we could tell that we have no internal leaks. We're on the audit wait list to be able to check for the external for our stuff. But the fact goes that we need to, hopefully, if we get this contract with the North Pooter, that we will see relief sooner rather than later, like immediate. Don't wait for the next budget. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I grab, I didn't get her name at the start.
Yeah. Go for it, sir.
My name is Stephen Carmen. I live in Meadows. As I've tracked community comments in recent days and also been involved with the city, there's reasonable concern about the significant difference between water rates in the town of Wellington and surrounding municipalities at the base rate, as well as the average water use tiers for those other municipalities that use tiers. Not all of them do. The town of Wellington is between 152 and 264% higher for the base rate and 118 to 265% higher for water use charges than surrounding municipalities. That being said, I understand that the town of Wellington is unique and independent from other municipalities. I also understand that the Board of Trustees must make decisions based on the unique needs, goals, and circumstances that it finds itself. Finally, I understand there may be limitations to what actions the Board of Trustees can take based on current agreements and/or state law. I participated in the Citizen Advisory Council in late 21 prior to the study that was conducted. The intent of that work was to find a reasonable and rational solution as a result of the negligence of previous town of Wellington leaders between 1992 and 2020, as you indicated yourselves in a recent statement that you published online. This roundtable pushed back hard on the original proposal from the town of Wellington to increase rates on day one. The bulk of that work was done by modeling hypothetical changes, and there was someone on staff, I don't remember his name, that built a fantastic spreadsheet, but it was hypothetical. Now that you have data, it's time to revisit. It's time to revisit the base rate. It's time to revisit the tiers. Either simplify the tiers from 4 to 1 or 4 to 3. And while I appreciate that the data that was shown previously shows that the bills match what was expected, they're still too high. So it needs to be revisited. I have several other questions which I had submitted online, but I want to just read a couple I know you can't answer. Is the increase in water rates in conjunction with the grants for the water plant expansion providing the finances that were expected? More or less? If more, what, if any, actions have been taken to reduce the water rates for the residents of Wellington? Thank you.
Thank you. That should be. Go for it.
Hello, my name is Chris Kleinsmith. I live over in the Meadows. I'm going to kind of keep this short and sweet as best I can. I think one of the primary concerns for a lot of us out there is this idea that we had this contract back in 1983 that was great for 30 years, and then suddenly it wasn't so great. And if you look at the paperwork that you provided and the statistics you provided, we see, between 2021 to 2024, a massive uptick. And I guess the question a lot of us have is, why was this not visited earlier? Why was this not addressed earlier? Now, you can't answer that question, but it is something that I think the people here would like to know. Everybody here is having their problems. I have some sympathy for the devil, I really do. But it's hard not to feel like there isn't some malfeasance when it's this negligent. It just isn't. And these rates they're absurd. They're just absurd. We're unfortunate. We're renters, right? So we have to have that lawn watered. We have to. We had to get a whole new yard put in because the last one died, right, from last summer. And that was on a summer when there was a lot of water. So we're paying outrageous amounts just to rent for the opportunity to live in Wellington, a place that we enjoy. It's a commuter town, but at this rate, I don't know how you can expect any growth. I don't know how you can expect anybody to move in here or do anything for that matter. I honestly don't even know how you can fix it. And I appreciate that you all have you have solutions for little things here and there. But guys, why did it take this long to address this? Why is there such a spike between 2 years ago and now? Those are the questions that we want answered. Those are the things that are important to us, because if you don't have an answer for it, what's going to happen down the line? And this idea that you're renegotiating contracts sounds great. How about some transparency with that? What is that contract? What does it mean? What are you saying and what are you doing? As much as you could provide would be wildly appreciated. Now, I sound a lot more angry than I actually am. I'm pretty relaxed about this, but sitting here tonight, just waiting for public comments and feeling like we're getting sandbagged because it's going to be difficult for you all to sit here and listen to us, is another point of frustration. And I get it. It's tough to be the target of a hard conversation. It's very difficult. But transparency is what we're looking for. And that's all I'm asking you to provide. Because if you don't, then I don't trust anything you're doing down the line. And I have no reason to. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Please keep clapping and applause down. I got to keep order in the room.
I've heard a lot of talk about the rates. By the way, my name's Chris Tyke. I've heard a lot of talk about the rates and not a lot about the usage. And I don't want to critique that. I just want to offer some suggestions along with the town website. They have indoor and outdoor, things you could follow, things you could do in your house to conserve water. The EPA has a website that you can go to and they have suggestions. There's programs that they offer for conserving water. Another thing is everybody has irrigation systems, or a lot of people have irrigation systems. If you have one, make sure you're blowing it out every October, end of October or beginning of October. Because if you're leaving water in there, there's a good chance it's going to freeze. And when that pipe freezes, it cracks. That's a leak. That could be in the valves. That could be, where the spigot comes up, there's water there, it will freeze and it will crack that pipe if it expands enough, if you're not blowing out your lines. The other suggestion I have is if you suspect there's a water leak, you can't afford a plumber, turn off all your water in your house go look at your water meter. If it's moving, that means there's water running. You may not be able to hear it.
Chris, sorry to interrupt you, but can
Yes,
you
sir.
please use your mic?
Yeah,
Just
sorry.
so the people at home can hear you.
So if you, I'll repeat that. If you suspect there's a leak and you can't afford a plumber, turn all your water off at the faucets, make sure there's no leaking toilets or anything like that. Go look at your meter. If it's still running, if it's still ticking away, then there's a leak. What's that? You can check your meters. You cannot alter or modify or anything like that. You can go out and look at your meter. I have a little cap on mine. It's a metal cap. It pulls right up and you can see the meter down there. And if it's a smart meter, it's going to have a digital gauge on it. If it's an analog meter, there generally is a little red dial along with an analog counter that shows the gallons per hour. So that's just my suggestion. And I wish you all the best in getting these water issues fixed. They're working on the rates. They're really stuck in between a rock and a hard place. And they can't, they're renegotiating, but what we have right now is what we have. And so solutions to conserve water is what we really should look at. Even if you're in an old house and you have a toilet that's 10, 15 years old, you can fill up a gallon of water and put it in the toilet, where the water is, and it will be, whatever, a gallon, 2 gallons less every flush. So there's things you can do.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charles Cunningham, and I'm a new resident to Wellington. I have family who live up here. I have a younger brother who's in a wheelchair, and so he has physical disabilities and whatnot. In less than a year's worth of time being here in Wellington, I found out there's a large concern amongst a lot of us about the cost of water and everything. And because I live close to where the like the water kiosk is off of 6th Street and everything, I noticed people coming and filling up jugs of water. In November, December of this year, our water was cut off because somehow or another we had racked up $4,000 worth of water bill, which I thought was outrageous because after a quarter century or more of living in Fort Collins, renting a house, living in a house, living with roommates and whatnot, I've never ever seen a water bill this outrageous. When I first moved up here, my brother and I went to the water department and I tried addressing the issue of the bill. I paid my brother what would be a reasonable amount of money for 1 month's worth of service to be divided by 3 or 4 of us in the house and everything. I gave the lady my check. She took it, she stamped it, put it back, into the slot and said, "Well, you're still under shut-off protocol." And I said, "What does that actually mean?" She goes, "Well, your water's going to be shut off because either of non-payment or you've just run up such a large bill that we got to stop it." I addressed the lady at the counter when I paid my bill, what would be the issue on this? She said, "You must have a water leak or in your basement or your irrigation system or your animals that you're feeding and everything." None of that we had. We have no sprinklers. We have no basement. And because we live close to an easement, there was nothing I could see around a half an acre's worth of property and house that was leaking water. They said you need to have a plumber come out and check to see if it's deep underground. We had a plumber come out. We had the toilets and everything fixed. They were leaking. They couldn't find the problem. When we asked for assistance from the city of Wellington Water, they'll come out and take a look at it. You know what they did? They came out and took a look at it and did nothing. And now we're still trying to pay off with a person who doesn't even have a job. I'm the only one working in our house for $4,000 worth of water that we can't possibly use in several months. And I don't have a solution. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Charles, what was your last name again?
Cunningham?
Cunningham, thank you.
Hi, I'm a terrible public speaker, so if I sound a little bit nervous, that would be why. I'm just here to talk about usage. So we're tenants, same thing. We have bougie landlords and they will not let us let our grass die. But at the same time, they actually pay for a company to come and turn our sprinklers on every year, blow them out in the fall. This is our third year in the house. We moved in August of 2022. So our usage rate, granted, we don't set anything. The only thing we've done differently this year is actually shut off 50% of the water in the back, because I'm actually was going to put a sod in, but now I'm rethinking that. Anyways, that said, we're up almost 100% year to year. So when I went and looked at my rates, last year was 16,000 on average during the summer months. This year, 25 and 28,000 gallons. I'm just scratching my head. Like, we've had sprinkler companies out there. We've identified one slightly leaky head. Outside of that, like, and I actually did the calculations off the July bill, which was 25,000 versus last year July bill. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but anyways, it effectively, I would have been having about 60 gallons per minute coming out of that one sprinkler head, or in just that zone extra, to equate based off of, our current like minutes and, days of the week that we water. Anyways, it's just blows my mind that it's effectively doubled. But in going back and looking at, we moved in August, under 5,000, under 5,000, here comes October, 47,000 gallons. We had set it and forget it, auto bill pay. It's $400. Thank God that was in 2022. Had that been, this year, November, 5,000, 6,000 gallons. That's our average, 5 to 6,000 when the sprinklers aren't on. I'm just like baffled. I know we didn't have a leak, pinky swear, promise. We haven't never had a plumber. I haven't damaged this house. 47,000 gallons, 100%, almost 100% increase year to year with one identified leak. And I'm going to write in and get our hourly usage and kind of get to the bottom of this, because some people said, like, yeah, there's, whoever did the math and it came out accurate. So we want to get a handle on it, but I have no explanation for 47,000 gallons. Yeah. And then it just magically fixed itself. Thank God.
And then could you state your name for me?
Yeah. Kimberly Miller.
Thank you.
Kimberly, what was your last name?
Miller.
Miller. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kendra Barrett and I live in the Knolls. I'm just as nervous as you are, Kimberly. First off, I want to thank everyone on our board for still choosing to be here. I know this issue's been an ongoing issue for a long time, not new to you, and you guys
Crowd, please quiet up.
you have continued to choose to be here and try to fight for us. So I appreciate all of you for that. I know that this is it can be an emotional subject. Economically, it can be very burdensome to take on those kind of water bills. And I empathize with everyone who is dealing with this dilemma, because it is a town that is dealing with this as a whole. I will say that I appreciate everyone who is trying to be conscientious about their water usage and to do the troubleshooting, or, just be a responsible water user. And it's not an easy subject if you're not, if you don't have a background in being able to detect a leak or whatnot, it can be an infuriating ordeal to find it, but it's also costly. So I appreciate everyone who is putting forth the effort to be mindful of their water usage. I know that the town has put information on the website anticipating this. You guys have put out so much information out there already, trying to encourage people to be mindful of their water usage and to have resources available to us. And you're continuing to look for more resources for us. So I appreciate all of that. I appreciate all of the work you put into the presentation tonight. It was extremely educational and it was great information, I thought. So I thank you all so much for all the work you put into this for us. And I know that it doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel yet, but I do have hope. And I know that you guys aren't giving up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Emily McBlair. I just have a follow-up comment in regards to the gentleman in the plaid shirt who was talking about transparency. I would love to see current monthly financials of where our water bills are going. There's an estimated budget for 2024 on the Town of Wellington website, but there's nothing further. If we're gonna be paying 200% more than our community members in Fort Collins, Loveland, et cetera, I wanna see where that money is going. I wanna know that my bills are going towards the water fund, towards this lease, the financials. You know, looking at the estimated, I have some questions about that budget too. Looking at it, there's 2 wages and salary line items. One of them, the number almost doubles from 2022 to 2023, yet the staff numbers stay the same. What's going on? I want to know where our money's going. That's all.
Thank you. Go for it.
Ready? My name is James Raymond. I live in Buffalo Creek. I've been a resident in Wellington for the past 12 years. And like everybody else, I've seen significant doubling in water rates despite my efforts to reduce water usage. Like many other residents, I continue to feel the financial burden on the rising cost. Today, I stand before you not as an individual concerned about my impact on my household, but as a voice for the broader community. This water crisis is not a personal issue. It affects all of us in Wellington. I respectfully ask the board what concrete steps are being taken to address this issue. And when can we expect meaningful action rather than further delays? The water plant treatment expansion should be complete. Can we review current water tier structures and increase the water gallons between the tiers? It's time for accountability. I stand in front of you and formally request the resignation of the current mayor of Wellington and the town administrator due to their failure to effectively address the ongoing water issues that have severely impacted the residents of Wellington. It is clear that the leadership plays a critical role in successful management and resolution of such critical issues. However, current administration has demonstrated the inability to manage the situation to the standard that the citizens of Wellington deserve. I would like to draw your attention to 2 recent examples of high-profile leaders who recognize the importance of responsibility of their organization's failures. David Calhoun, formerly the CEO of Boeing, and Kimberly Chattel, the former director of the United States Secret Service. Both have stepped down from their positions early this year after their respective organizations failed to perform their duties correctly. As head of their respective entities, they understand that the resignations were necessary to uphold the integrity and accountability of their institutions. In the light of the ongoing crisis in Wellington, it is apparent that the similar accountability should be expected from the town's leadership. Therefore, I respectfully request for the mayor of Wellington and the town administrator to resign from their position. This action will be a necessary step towards ensuring that our town is governed by leaders who prioritize the well-being and the trust of the constituents. I hope you will consider my request with the seriousness it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And then James, did you put your email down there so you get your questions answered?
Oh, yeah, I will. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
will. Thank you.
My name is Trevor Daniels. We've lived here since 2013. The water bills really haven't been astronomical from what I remember since just a year or 2 ago that we really noticed it. I guess, yeah, kind of like my wife was saying, our tenants were just saying how they can't swing $800 to $900 in water a month. However, we did realize kind of what we can do, maybe zero escape or something like that. So we'll look into that. But I don't know, the fact that the tier prices are just going to be higher up to 2028, like 5% a year or whatever. I just don't, I mean, I get that you guys have a quota that you're trying to reach for what you're trying to do. I just don't see how that's sustainable for the people that live here. You know, if people are already complaining, saying, holy crap, like I can't pay this already. So I don't know the solution for that. But I don't know, it just seems like it's already hard for people now. I guess it would be a matter of seeing what people can do to bring down water consumption, but I don't know. It does kind of seem like some of the water meter reading is kind of sporadic. We do know a couple people that like their water bill is the same every month. And it's like lower than the base rate. I'm not going to say who it is, but
Can I quickly address that?
No.
No, okay, no problem, no problem. That's cool.
so, and I mean, I don't know, and it could be the antiquated meters. I have no idea. But there is kind of some weird spotty stuff that we've heard, but I don't know. I mean so the only thing I would think with zero escaping, if that kind of sounds like you guys are saying that's probably the way to go. I know people are saying their HOAs don't allow it, but it kind of seems like they're just going to have to accept that. I don't know. I don't really have anything else.
Thank you. Public comment. Going once. Going twice. Sold. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Thank you for being here.